Así que démosle la más cordial bienvenida. Peter, hi, come up here right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Déjenles platico, Peter High, pues es un experto, un estratega y pues se ha especializado en tecnologías de la información. Las empresas a las que él les da asesoría son grandes empresas de Forbes 500 en diversas industrias. ¿Para qué les digo? Bueno, ya lo dijo Paco, es colaborador de The Wall Street Journal. Oh, so you want to be a reporter also. You're a journalist too.
Un poco.
Un poco. Denle un gran aplauso porque esta plática está increíble.
Muchas gracias. 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 Buenas noches, amigos y amigas. And I apologize, that is all the Spanish that I will be using this evening. I apologize. This is my 5th CITEK. I'm very proud to say that I have spoken at all of them. And it is a great honor to be back, and great to see many old friends and to make some new ones as well. I'd like to actually add a few quick thank yous. I'd like to thank Melissa Rojas for the great work that she has been doing for me as well as for my panelists. Thank you so much. I want to thank Jesus Yasso as well. I don't know where Jesus is. And especially Gabriela Gonzalez Aranda, who has been just an amazing help throughout this process. Thank you so much. And the many volunteers, the people behind the scenes who make this such a great event, and also the translators. So thank you very much as well. And I also, of course, need to thank President Fox, Mrs. Marta. I'm honored to know you, and thank you so much for including me. So I would like to tell 3 stories while I'm on stage. I will tell one myself, one of my favorite stories of the past year, a story of great innovation, digital innovation. And then the 2 other stories will be provided through a conversation I'll be having with a couple of friends of mine. 2 very different stories from the first one, but I hope you'll enjoy each of them. For those who are interested, this is a little bit about me. I write some books, as was mentioned. I write for Forbes. I have a podcast. Should you wish to be in touch via Twitter, my handle is Peter A. High, and I'd be delighted to hear from you if you're so inclined. So let me get right into this. I want to tell a story of a phenomenal digital innovation company, one that's performance since 2010, so the performance this decade, has been extraordinary. In fact, let me show you a chart of their stock performance relative to the market, generally speaking. I feel a little bit like Dr. Pinker with this chart. Everything's getting better, right? And when I show this chart often to friends of mine and mention that this is a great digital innovator, often the guesses as to who this is, what company this is, include, let's say, Amazon or Google or Apple or Facebook. Very logical guesses, certainly. But let me show you the stock performance of this company relative to those 4. Those are those 4 companies. They're well below this organization. So let me reveal this to you. The company that has done this well this decade is a company called Domino's Pizza. A little bit surprising, a digital innovation organization, a pizza company. But it's true. This is a company that has performed extraordinarily as a result of their use of digital technology. And now this may seem very strange, but the reason why I want to tell this story is your organizations are probably going through some degree of digital transformation. And if I were to offer you advice as to what Amazon or Facebook or Google are doing, well, their budgets for technology are probably a little bit larger than yours, I imagine, certainly a lot bigger than mine. But certainly yours is an organization that would be able to compete digitally with a pizza company, no? So let me tell you a bit of the background here. Domino's Pizza was founded in 1960. It was actually called Dominic's at that point in Michigan in the United States. And their real revolution was originally delivering pizza. Now this doesn't seem so innovative today, but delivering pizza to your door. So you call them, you have your meal delivered. And they did incredibly well, as this was a real customer experience innovation. But unfortunately, as they grew, or as the pizza market grew, those who liked this convenience remained as customers, but those who liked good pizza went elsewhere because the product wasn't very good, as it turns out. So the company went through very difficult times as a result of this. So let me show you. And unfortunately, it went through very difficult times during the era of social media. So these issues were amplified. Basically, customers or would-be customers were saying the very negative things about the company, unfortunately, making it very clear to others as to how bad the product was. So they went through a rather difficult process of reinventing their pizza. And their CEO, this is a picture of him, went through and developed a nationwide commercial that said, "We're sorry for sucking," meaning we're sorry our pizza is so bad, and we promise to do better. So what did they do? They did, in fact, improve the recipe, so that's a very important first step, but they also went through the process of hiring better technology talent. So they went to universities, developed better relationships with those, had more people working inside of the organization to help innovate, as opposed to outsourcing all of their technology. They began to use data analytics to a greater extent to understand what were customers choosing and why, which ones were loyal or more loyal than others, and how do we serve them perhaps a bit better. They also developed their own point-of-sale system, homegrown, to be able to have a lot of, or I should say, remove a lot of friction from the process. Additionally, they went through the process of several rounds of innovation using digital technology. This included enabling users to contact them in a variety of ways. In fact, this last chart here shows the various ways in which you can order a pizza. You can tweet an order. You can text an order. And ultimately, the app will find you where you are at your address. You can also develop what they refer to as pizza profiles. So you can save the recipe you like best so that it's that much faster to order the next time. Yes? Continuing through this, they began to experiment with a lot of very far out there innovations, including a self-driving car, sort of a robotic car to deliver pizzas. They also developed self-driving automation with ovens in them. I don't know about you, I probably wouldn't want to drive an oven, but they're choosing to do so that it gets to you that much quicker. Part of the cooking process actually is happening in the car itself. And what's very interesting is as they develop these innovations, they develop more of a reputation for innovation as well. It changed the culture of the company as a result. People who worked there had a lot of pride in the great new things that they were trying, the experimentation that the organization was going through. And it became a place where great people wanted to stay, but also told friends, I work for a phenomenal and innovative company, and perhaps you should as well. So very interesting what they went through. And as a result of this, 60% of their revenue now comes through digital channels. This is multiple billions of dollars, and they're the largest pizza company now in the United States as a result of this. Now, the lesson I want to impart upon you is it's important as you think about your customers in the many industries that are represented here, you think about their own journeys, and think about meeting them where they would like to be met, on the devices that they wish to use, using the programs or software that they want as well. All too often, companies dictate to their customers how it is you must engage with us, the channel you must use. But really, one of the keys to this success is understanding customers better and engaging them in ways in which they would wish. So, and I wanted to leave you with a few lessons from this before I call up my first guest. So, some of the key lessons to success in the digital economy include, number one, learning agility. What do I mean by this? It means creating a culture where people don't just stay satisfied with the skills they have today, but want to learn about the skills for tomorrow, the technical skills, the finance skills, business skills, operations skills. Creating a learning organization all the while, very important first step. Also, process agility. So engaging your customers as you are developing new products, new projects, determining whether or not they are good ideas before you have spent all the money on them and released them, ultimately. Developing an orientation towards experimentation and what I refer to, and others have referred to as well, as the art of the possible. So you see this with the Domino's example, this pizza company's example, the many things they are trying. Some will succeed, some will not. And as we heard from the earlier speaker, in many cases it's those failures that are invaluable sources of learning for us. So trying many things, not worrying so much about those that don't succeed, but learning from them and trying again. Additionally, establishing a culture of innovation. And this, I think, is a very important thing. Yours is an organization that has a culture, whether you have defined it or not. And the important thing is getting to the point of coming up with what do you hold dearly? What are the cultural attributes that you want to use for hiring people, for engaging your organization, etc., and orienting that to a greater degree for innovation. And then ultimately thinking about the security, the data centricity aspects of this. As I mentioned before, understanding the various types of customers or personas that interact with your products and services and serving them differently based upon what you learn. And then lastly, I was getting a little ahead of myself, a security mentality as well. Since, of course, in the digital age, unfortunately, there are a number of bad actors, and making sure that that data that you are gathering that becomes the lubricant, the oil to your success, making sure that it is secure and it remains inside your four walls as opposed to bleeding or leaking outside of those. So a few things that come to mind from my perspective that perhaps you might take with you for your own experiences in your own organizations. But with that, I'd like to, so that's story number one of the three that I mentioned. For the second one, I'd like to call up a good friend of mine, Jacqueline Guichelaar. Would you help me welcome Jacqueline? Great. Great to see you.
Thank you. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent.
Hopefully everyone else can hear you okay as well. So Jacqueline is an extraordinary technology leader, an innovator, somebody who's worked for a number of august, great financial institutions. These include Deutsche Bank, German organization, Lloyds Bank in the UK, Thomson Reuters, a New York-based financial information firm. And we could talk at great length about the many great experiences she's had in those organizations, those very organizations. But I'd like to actually begin at a different place, if you don't mind, Jackie. And in so doing, actually introduce you from a younger age and do a little bit of bragging for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So one of the most amazing stories I have heard in recent memory is Jackie's, in fact. She was born in Uruguay. So from this hemisphere, once you hear her speak, you'll hear a very beautiful Australian accent. But despite that fact, she was born in Uruguay. At 2, she moved to Australia with her family. And as so many enterprising immigrants do, her family found work. This was a new opportunity that they were seizing. And they cleaned houses, they cleaned offices. And Jackie, the enterprising person that she was, the hardworking person that she was, at 10, 2 or 3 days a week, would actually clean houses and offices herself. And one of the things that I think is so amazing is one of the offices that she cleaned, in fact, during that time when she was 10, she would become the chief information officer of. Extraordinary, right? I just love that story. I think it's just an amazing story of possibility. Yeah, if you're so inclined, I think that's worth a round of applause. Absolutely. That's the National Bank of Australia was the name of that organization. So Jackie, maybe we begin there actually.
Yeah.
Where does this well of ambition, of an ability to seize opportunities come from? When you think of where you began, it was a pretty low rung on the ladder, and yet you rose very quickly. We'll get into some of the details of that soon.
Sure.
But where did your ambition come from? Where did those initial successes come from?
Sure. Okay. So because I'm, everyone can hear me okay?
Oh.
Can you hear me okay? This way?
Maybe put it a little
because
higher.
Because I am Latina, born in Uruguay. No? You can't hear it? How about that? I have to hold a mini microphone. So, if you don't mind, I'll just take a step back, Peter. Is that okay?
Please do.
So, as Peter said, I was born in Uruguay, Montevideo. Anyone know where that is? Thank you. And my parents moved to Australia when I was 2 years old. That's why I have an Australian accent. And most people would think I can't speak Spanish. Pero pienso que muy bien el español. Pienso que sí. No, está bien. Está bien con esto. Está bien. Does it look funny? So if it's okay, what I think we'll do is I'll try and do Spanglish. Not all English, not all Spanish, but a bit of Spanglish. So I'm going to start with my Spanish version.
Yes. Please let me know if she's talking about me.
Yeah. So, así que mis padres se fueron para Australia cuando yo tenía 2 años. Imagínate. No hablaban nada de inglés. ¿Ahora mejor? Mis padres se fueron para Australia cuando tenía 2 años. En 1974, cuando el gobierno de Australia querían que vinieran inmigrantes a Australia y ofrecían tickets de vuelo de $10. Y mis padres dejaron todo lo que tenían en Uruguay, en Montevideo, para ir a Australia. Y después yo me di cuenta, a los 10 años, que hicieron eso por el futuro de los hijos. Así que imagínate, dejaron todo, no hablaban una gota de inglés, se fueron al otro lado del mundo con casi nada de plata. Y ahí empezó lo que yo digo, las cosas que yo aprendí, que me dio el strength, que se dice, y el courage, de lo que yo hice. So just a little bit about courage and pieces that I got from my parents, given that they'd made such a huge move. So now a little bit of English. So from my perspective, one of the biggest things that motivated me about the fact that my parents had moved to the other side of the world was the courage and the risk that they took, not knowing what would happen. And I learned at a very young age that that was something that was very special about my parents. And I would later learn that actually I inherited a very big part of who they were is who I became.
Thank you for that overview. I think that's just great. Certainly, as we're talking about connecting global citizens, a great representation of that, to say the least. In lieu of going to university, you began working at a company called AMS, a financial services and insurance company in Australia at 17. You rose in that organization, joined IBM. It was in your late 20s when you began working directly with chief information officers, very, very early. And you would become a chief information officer yourself at 32. Again, that extraordinary and rapid rise. I want to also note, this is all the while happening in an industry that unfortunately is notorious for not being the most welcoming of women. And so maybe we explore that for a moment, if you don't mind, Jackie, the state of the union of women in technology, but also with a bit of a reflection of your own journey, especially for the many. It's nice to see so many women here with perhaps a tune to some advice you might offer for them as well.
Yeah. So it's true that when I started in technology, I mean, at 17, I was probably the only woman, at least the only woman in Australia that I could find in technology. And in those days, I was working night shift. And one of the things that I think I just did naturally, which I try and pass on to young women who are looking to do a career in technology, is you don't have to feel different. I mean, I was obviously different. I was the only female working night shift with 19 men and myself. But I didn't ever feel that I was different. I felt that I was there to do a job and learn as much as I could. Now, it's probably true that to some extent I tried to be part of the group. You know, I tolerated things that maybe we're not going to repeat now. We're talking in 1990, when things were a bit different in the office, in terms of what the guys would do and what they would look at on the computers, etc. So, you know, but I think in the end, they accepted me because I could do my job. And they accepted me because I think I accepted myself first. And as a result of that, I found a career in IBM for about 8 years, which actually was the beginning of what would become a very big career for me over time. You know, my advice and this is to me not just a woman thing, my advice is it's good to be different. And if you can take what differences you have and bring that to the table, I think that people can acknowledge and they can see that you bring something different. So by actually being different in a way, I think that's an advantage. And I try and take those opportunities, you know, as I do. And I'm a big believer of diversity of thought. A better team is a team that has a different group of people in it who think differently. And you know what? The advice I'd give to women in IT is actually not about it's not about being male. There is a myth out there. I still hear it in the UK. I still hear it in Australia that technology is just for men. It's not true. I mean, if you look at technology now, it's less about necessarily whether you want to be an engineer or a technical person, but you can be a leader, you can be a strategist, you can be a transformer, you can sell a cloud product. It's very different skills than actually just being technical or being an engineer. So I think the world of IT is open, and frankly, I think the skills that women bring around leadership and empathy and bringing groups together is probably more needed now in technology than it ever has been before.
That's wonderful. Yeah, a great synopsis. Thank you for that, Jackie. I want to also ask you, again, as a sign of the degree to which you are a global citizen. You worked in Australia, you've worked in Germany, you've worked in Singapore, you've worked in New York, you currently work and live in London. You've been in so many different cultures. I wonder if you could reflect a moment, and I have to imagine part of your own thought process about feeling at home in all of these places is in fact the immigrant's journey that you've already talked a little bit about. But I wonder if you could talk a bit about your own perspectives, having worked across such a diverse array of companies and ultimately cultures and countries. What lessons you've drawn from that?
Yeah. So I like using examples. Voy a hacer esto en español, ¿ok? El ejemplo número uno, cuando yo trabajaba en Alemania, this is the Germany example. Yep. A los 32 años, el jefe de Alemania, que era muy alto, reportaba al CEO, que le dicen, Herman Lamberti, me dijo, Jackie, queremos que vos estés en cargo de toda la tecnología en Alemania, y si te va bien, te damos toda Europa. Así que a los 32 años, imagínate, ahora estoy en cargo de 2.000 alemanes, hombres, entre los 40 y los 60 años. That was the 40-60 piece. Pero no fue tan bueno el primer año, te lo digo. Los alemanes no tenían miedo de decirme que yo no sabía nada, que no entendía por qué yo estaba en cargo de la compañía Alemania en Frankfurt, porque yo era una mujer de Australia que no sabía nada del banco. Pero lo bueno de los alemanes es que te dicen lo que piensan. Así que por ahí empecé. Y yo le explicaba a ellos por qué pensé que mi jefe me puso en cargo de ellos, porque estaban en mucho problema con los sistemas de tecnología y que yo había aprendido en Australia cosas que yo podía traer a enseñarle a ellos, y a la misma vez yo no podía hacer mi trabajo sin ellos, porque ellos sabían todos los sistemas de tecnología. Bueno, al final, después de volver a casa muchos días de noche llorando, me levantaba el otro día y iba de vuelta a la oficina. Uno por uno me gané a los alemanes. Y cuando me fui lloraban ellos, 4 años después. Pero no fue tan fácil. Tuve que pelear, tuve que convencer, tuve que hacer todo en mi poder para que me respeten, para que me acepten. Y lo que yo nunca hice, como se dice en español, I never gave up. Como se dice, nunca. Eso, nunca. Así que pienso que, coming back to the point about citizen of the world,
Please.
One of the biggest lessons for me about Germany was, even if it's a different culture and in the beginning they don't accept you, that doesn't mean you should stop trying, because actually what happened was we became a family. An Australian Uruguayan living in Germany that was accepted was probably the first time that had happened, and that wouldn't have if we weren't open-minded. And in my view, diversity and different cultures bring so much more strength to a team that has a very big task of transforming the bank systems in Germany at that time.
What an amazing story. Really remarkable, and great to hear your lessons of this. That also brings to mind that your never giving up meant that you stayed in your role, you contributed, you served as somebody who others could follow, women and men. whose footsteps they might follow for the courage they saw in you every day. Well, with that, I hope you will join me in thanking Jackie Guichelaar for telling us a bit about her extraordinary career journey. Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me help you.
All right, you deserve a kiss for that.
Very nice. An amazing story indeed. So that's story number 2. I hope you like that one. So the third story that I'd like to tell is about someone who's doing some absolutely amazing work in education, an area that I know is a great passion of the President and Ms. Marta. Shafiq Khan, would you join me on stage, and would you mind helping me welcome him as he does? Shafiq, welcome. So, as I did with Jackie, I'm going to take a quick moment, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about you and again, do your bragging for you. So, Shafiq runs an extraordinary education company, but I want to take a step back for him also. Again, a global citizen. Shafiq was born in Pakistan, born, educated, raised, spent a time in the airline industry in Pakistan working for the national carrier. That took him actually to a stint in Europe, in Paris, and for the past several decades has lived in the US, in Chicago, and now in Washington, D.C. We both live in Washington, D.C. I'm so pleased to be a near neighbor of his. And he, through a series of roles at major airlines, including United Airlines, US Airways, found his way to Marriott International, the enormous hotel company I'm sure all of you have heard of. And it was there that he made an extraordinary mark in the digital space, an e-commerce space. He took an online e-commerce digital presence and grew it from $150 million in revenue to $15 billion in revenue. And in so doing, made Marriott one of the top 10, by revenue, one of the top 10 organizations in the world. And the others, by the way, on that list are companies like Amazon and eBay and organizations that first come to mind when it comes to digital commerce, that is all they do. So an extraordinary bit of work that he did. As he thought, though, about his legacy and thought about what he wanted to do next, it was this next project that we're going to be talking about that occurred to him, and that was moving on to develop, to found. He's now the president of a company called Teach the World Foundation. And this is helping those who are most vulnerable become educated. And I wonder if you could take a moment, Shafiq, and tell us a bit about the problem that you have diagnosed. What is it that you are trying to solve?
First, thank you for such a generous introduction. I really appreciate it very much. And I might not have the opportunity before everybody goes to sleep here to thank President Fox, Mrs. Fox, for the fantastic hospitality we are experiencing here. So, in fact, I'd love to talk to you about making your property a Marriott. Your property, but still yours. So we'll have that conversation if you allow me the opportunity. But back to Peter's question. The question was, for me personally, it was a personal journey. I had been in the business of digital transformation for a long time. I actually had the privilege of launching online booking for the first time in the travel industry and electronic ticketing and so on. And all of those were very satisfying and very powerful. They ended up being very successful. But it was all just business and money, and I was doing it for money. And at a certain point in time, it became apparent to me that the power of digital technology could be used for the world in a much better fashion. And for me then, it became a search for what can I look at that I can use my skills and background to transform. And very quickly I landed on education and learning as being the most important. So when you look at education, in Mexico, you probably will take it for granted because you have 95% literacy. But the fact is, in the world which has a population right now of 7.65 billion, so let's say 7 billion, 2 billion of the people in the world are illiterate. And these are functionally illiterate. The statistics are always understated because all countries want to say more people are literate than there are. So if you think about the world as a family, and if you think about 2 out of 7 people in a family being illiterate, you know what happens. Right? You know that your 2 people in the family are going to be poor. They are probably going to be in all kinds of difficulties. They will maybe turn to the wrong actions. And even for the other 5 who are literate and richer, let's say, they become a burden. And that's clearly the case in the world. So it's not a zero-sum game, and Mexico may have 95% literacy, but should it worry about illiteracy in Malawi, which has got 20% literacy? Yes. And in the world, yes. So the problem is a very significant one, and there's no question that the problem is, it's also recognized by the United Nations as one of the 4 Sustainable Development Goals. So it's the 4th goal, and it's just holding the world back and holding every country in the world back. It's holding this global family back.
Can I ask you in brief, can you talk about what the primary driver of the issue is?
Yeah, so the primary reason for illiteracy is a lack of investment in education. Now, we saw Dr. Pinker's slides, and yes, there is more and more education and more investment in education. But the problem is that today, that investment isn't sufficient to solve our problems in a short time. So, for instance, one of the biggest problems right now is we have a shortage of teachers. Africa is short by 1.5 million teachers. That's a lot of teachers. The world overall has 11 million teachers, less than it needs today. And if you look at the number for the next 20 years or 30 years, we are talking about population increases and at the same time, teacher shortages that are going to become 2 to 3 times bigger.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest problem. The second biggest problem also is something that we've come across in very large part in developing countries, and that is the poor quality of teaching in the developing world. Frankly, it exists even in the developed world, but in the developing world, teaching is just done poorly and delivered poorly. The training of the teachers is bad. And so that is a very significant problem.
Yes. Again, if you could briefly maybe talk about the perspectives, or your perspectives drawing from your past experience of the role that digital can play, the role that technology can play. And I know we'll have a video in a moment to further explain this, but maybe introduce that a little bit.
So the reality became for us, if it's a very significant problem, how do you solve it? And very quickly, it was not through traditional means, not through, teacher training. It takes 20 years to produce a teacher. By that time, you're short another 10 million teachers. So that is not going to be the solution. And given my background in digital transformation, and knowing that we have a digital revolution going on today that has transformed our lives, this is part of why we are even here, the solution became a technology solution. And I'll simplify. In a very simple fashion, the solution is online, a curriculum that a child would learn online, delivered on a user-friendly device like a tablet, which a 2-year-old now knows how to use, and most importantly, in a game format. So if you have a game that a child is going to play, they don't need a teacher to supervise them. They don't need a teacher to motivate them. In fact, they don't need to be motivated. Our experience is we've got to actually tell the kids to go home because they don't want to go home. They don't want to leave class and break. And so that is our concept.
Excellent. Well, as you like to say, a picture tells 1,000 words, but actually a video provides 1,000,000. So maybe if we could cue the video now and play it for everyone so they can see some of what Shafiq is talking about in action.
Every teachable child to be educated gets their own tablet, and it is delivered in a format that's gamified, so that it is engaging and so that it motivates the child to make their best.
Digital world is a radically new and creative approach to literacy for kids in the developing world, harnessing the power of new technologies.
So one of the first things we decided we would do is to create our own evidence that this concept works. We went to a community in a depressed area of Karachi, recruited 22 children who meet the United Nations definition of out-of-school kids. These are kids who have never been to school, ever. Had them come into a classroom. A1 started to teach them on tablets.
When these children came, letters of the alphabet, numbers, colors, everything was new to them. They were not familiar with anything. They were taught only how to open and shut the tablet. They were mesmerized by what they were learning.
One of the little girls we had is a girl called Iram. When we did her pretest, she, in some ways, flunked completely, but in another way, she passed the test royally because we wanted to get kids who knew nothing.
It took her, I would say, more than 6 weeks, Iram, to show progress. But after 6 weeks, it was like magic. She started to tell me numbers, she started to sing nursery rhymes. It was just like one day. I heard somebody singing aloud, and that was Iram.
When these kids came in, they had no level of reading or writing, and 3 months later, 100% of them are reading and writing the entire English alphabet. They're doing counting, they're doing basic math. Some of our administrators are amazed that they haven't seen this level of transformation of kids, even in some of the most elite schools in the country. It proved the concept for us that having the latest technology combined with an environment where kids are incented to learn, combined with an engaging mechanism that keeps their attention, becomes a very, very powerful catalyst for radical, immediate transformation.
Sadiq was clueless about colors or numbers or names of animals. When he came, he started working on the tablets. And once he was confident that he's picked up the basic, there was no stopping him. 5th week or the 6th week, I discovered that he was calculating in negative numbers, like -3 - 2 equals -5. I mean, I was simply amazed. He has not stopped. He started doing crossword puzzles, a lot.
Technology is just not as intimidating for kids, we see. And this point about giving life to things for kids is especially powerful, that they can make things happen in this medium, and unlike they can in lots of other environments.
3 months of working in this classroom with 23 children, with our tablets and the apps. Today, I'm a big believer of this technology-based learning, that it can deliver, it will deliver.
Very nice. Good. An extraordinary story, and I think it's one point to re-emphasize, it bears re-emphasis, is these are not the elite children. They were not chosen because they were the smartest children. In fact, as you point out in the video, what you were looking for were those who were believed to be the least talented among the children.
Right.
And yet the results were extraordinary. Let's talk about that, actually, Shafiq. Tell us a bit about the pilots. We've seen a little bit about the one in Pakistan, but also if you wouldn't mind talking about the results.
Yes. So actually, when we did this, we hired a third party, a US company called Nielsen, which is probably here too, and basically had them do the research with a control group that was a group going to a regular school. And initially, when Nielsen asked me what my expectation was, I said on a scale of 1 to 10, if the traditional kids who were getting a regular school and a regular teacher were going to score 10, and my kids scored 5, I would be very happy. Because otherwise they would be at 0. As you said, we picked kids and tested kids who knew nothing. So when the first Nielsen report came out, I was shocked. And the first thing I did was say, hey, have you got the numbers wrong? And in fact, they said, no, the numbers are right. And the reason was that these kids had not only done very well, they had done twice as well as the kids going to the traditional schools and in math, and about 2.5 times better in reading.
Extraordinary.
And all of a sudden it was like, my God, this is not only a solution for children who don't have teachers or who don't have access to school. This is a solution even to the poor quality of teaching that I just mentioned. So now we have 6 pilots going on. We have 3 in Pakistan, again in very depressed areas. We have 2 in Bangladesh, both in refugee camps, one of them in the Rohingya refugee camps, and the other in a refugee camp in Dhaka. And the results are all fantastic. I mean, still almost all the same results, 2 to 3 times better results than you would get from a traditional education, which has been incredibly heartening.
Yeah.
The one thing that it has told me is that while I was really primarily looking at solving the literacy problem, and that was the only thing I was looking for, frankly, we are on to a new way of learning. This is just a new method of learning through games. For now, for us, it's very clear it's a far more powerful way of learning than the traditional method of learning. In fact, internally, we talk about now the traditional way of learning being a push method of learning, where you have a teacher who's trying to push knowledge into the mind of a child who really sometimes cannot pay enough attention. I mean, just it's in the nature of a child. Versus this pull method, where you're playing a game, and while you're playing it, you are 100% engaged. And at the end of the day, we realize that the secret to learning is engagement. If you don't engage, you can't learn. And if you can create good engagement, that's what happens.
Yes. I can't help but think a little bit about some of Dr. Pinker's conversation as well, in terms of the progress that has been made around the world. And the faster we can reach this goal of ending illiteracy, the implications for society are remarkable. Can you reflect on that for a moment?
No question. So let's start with the developing world. What would happen to the development world? Again, you've got 2 billion people out of the 7 billion who are illiterate. What happens to them if they get educated? They become like the other 5. What a massive impact. The other thing is that you start to see an equalization impact. The gap between the poor countries and the rich countries, which I was glad to see Dr. Pinker's numbers, which said the gap is now lower than it has been in the past. Same thing will happen here. We know that there's a direct correlation between education and economic progress, education and poverty. And so the implications for the developing world will be that they will have more economic progress, they will have less crime, they will have less intolerance, they will have less of a lot of social ills. At the same time, frankly, because we are seeing that this learning, new way of learning is coming about, even for the developed world, there is this new model of learning, the new paradigm of learning, that I believe will actually just propel learning significantly. I mean, if we believe that all human progress is a function of learning, and we have to believe that, right? I mean, we see that directly everywhere. If all human progress is a function of learning, if you're expanding and improving learning, even in the developed world, it is going to have a huge impact. So in the case of Mexico, now sort of middle economy, clearly getting to the developed world, very low literacy, illiteracy issues. The fact is, going to this new model of learning for Mexico would also be great. And frankly, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, as a digital practitioner for the last 30 years, I can tell you that it is just going to happen. It may happen faster if we adopt it quickly and don't have many of the people that Dr. Pinker was talking about, the naysayers say, oh no, this is not going to work, and so on.
Yeah.
But really go for the possibilities, which already are apparent. I think it's going to have a very, very positive effect on the developed world.
Last question for you. For those who are inspired to get involved in some way, what would you advise?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say to everyone, and everyone has a different capacity. So President Fox has a different capacity to say, what should we do with adopting new and innovative solutions to learning? Mrs. Fox has a different capacity. If Mrs. Fox wanted to do something about illiteracy for women in the world outside of Mexico, clearly she has a different capacity. For other people, it's, you know, this is a new wave. Get on this new wave. So if you are the training department head in a company and you feel that you can use digital and use games to train, I can tell you that you will have massive impact. If you're a teacher or in education and you see that digital practices can be implemented in your schools, please go for them. And in fact, in the US, right by Apple in Cupertino, they've actually got one of the best examples of a really good school using digital learning to be even better. In fact, their results were so good that they stopped publishing them because they started to get complaints from the other schools that didn't have the technology, that hadn't been given the money to do it. So my ask of everyone is, this is a new wave. You are a very promising developing country, in fact, even beyond that. So at this point, get behind this new wave. Don't wait for all the evidence and all the proof that that'll come 10 years from now.
That's great. Oh, I must say, having seen Shafiq's work in his prior life at Marriott up close, the world is very fortunate to have somebody of his talent who could easily have stayed with that organization and continue to do extraordinary things from a business perspective, now putting that great mind into such a worthy cause. So if you're as inspired as I am, I hope you'll join me in thanking him.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Very well done. Great job.
Thank you.
So I will just close by saying these were the three stories. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you found them as inspiring as I have. Thank you so much again for including me in CITEK. President Fox, Mrs. Fox, I am honored to know you and honored to be included. And thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of the conference.
Bien, pues Peter Hay, muchísimas gracias. Muchas gracias por esta conferencia que obviamente pues, nos ha dejado completamente satisfechos al respecto de todas las cuestiones que deben de hacerse al respecto de este mundo globalizado. Mi estimada Ale, pues creo que ha llegado el momento en que nos ayudes a agradecerle a Peter Hay y a su equipo tal cual se lo merecen, Jacqueline Guichelaar, Shafiq Khan, Keller Rinaudo y David Bray, de pues todas estas pláticas, estas experiencias al respecto de los éxitos que se deben de tener y el camino, sobre todo, que hay que dar. Adelante, Ale.
Miren, ya me cortaron el micro. Ah, ya regresó. Por favor, please come back up here. The three of you, great stories. Thank you so much. But I do have to give you a little bit of Mexico. So please. These are suculentas. So please pick one.
Lovely, thank you.
So you guys know you have to take care of them. You have to water them 2 times a week, no more, or you'll drown them. Okay? A little piece of Mexico for you guys. Un aplauso, por favor.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.